Hidden cameras caught my wife cheating on me, and I uploaded it to an adult site. When someone betrays you, it feels like your world collapses around you, like every emotion is laid bare, raw, and exposed. Tom, know that feeling all too well. The kind of pain that hits so deep it makes you question everything you thought was real. When I discovered my wife, Jessie, was cheating on me with her professor, my world shattered. And it wasn't some random mistake, either. It was a calculated betrayal that destroyed the life I thought we had. I met Jessie during our college years. She was smart, driven, and always had this fire in her eyes, like she could conquer anything. She was deep into her PhD dissertation at the time we got married, and I admired her ambition. We were supposed to be the couple everyone envied, the one that made it through the rough patches of early adulthood, stronger because of it. But that image, that life, was all a lie. Behind my back, she was building something else with another man. I manage IT projects for a large company. Dealing with complex systems and fixing problems is what I do for a living. But the one problem I never saw coming, the betrayal from the person I trusted the most. It's funny how blind love can make you. I was always there, supporting her, thinking we were a team. We had a routine. I'd make her breakfast when she pulled all-nighters, pick her up from the university when she stayed late, never doubting her excuses. Turns out, I was the idiot walking around blind while she was screwing her professor. The first time I heard the rumors, I shrugged them off. It didn't come from me either. It was a friend who'd seen Jessie around campus. "There's talk, man," he'd said, "about Jessie and her professor." He didn't want to get too specific, but it was enough to plant the seed of doubt. At first, I didn't believe it. Why would I? She'd always been upfront with me. Or at least I thought she was. I couldn't imagine her betraying me. But after hearing it, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. That night, I sat across from her at the dinner table, her face lit up by the glow of her laptop as she worked on her dissertation. I stared at her, wondering if I even knew who she really was anymore. Without thinking, the word slipped out, "I know everything. I know what's going on between you and your professor." It was a bluff. I had no proof. Nothing but gut instinct and a few careless whispers. But the second I said it, I saw her face change. Her eyes went wide, like a deer caught in headlights. Then the tears came. Jessie broke down right in front of me, her face crumbling as she tried to explain. "It's not what you think," she sobbed, grabbing at my hand. "It was just flirting. Nothing serious." I was confused, but "it won't happen again." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I almost believed her. I was staring at the woman I'd promised to spend my life with, the woman I thought I knew inside and out. It's crazy how much damage love can do when it's mixed with betrayal. She kept crying, pleading for me to understand, to give her another chance. And you know what? Like an idiot I did, I wanted to believe her, that this thing between her and the professor was just a stupid, fleeting mistake. In the pit of my stomach, I still had doubts, but I pushed them down. I wanted to save what we had, to fix our broken marriage. So I forgave her. "I don't want to lose you," she whispered, clinging to me like I was her lifeline. I believed in second chances. I believed in us. But looking back now, that was my first real mistake. Trusting her again when I should have walked away the second she confessed. Months went by, and things seemed better, at least on the surface. Jessie made more of an effort. She'd text me during the day, call when she was going to be late at the university, and we even started spending more time together. But no matter how hard we tried, something was still off. It was like a crack had formed in our marriage, and no amount of pretending could fix it. The worst part, every time she stayed late at the university, that seed of doubt would grow inside me. I'd ask myself, is she really working on her dissertation, or is she back with him? It ate at me, but I kept pushing it down, not wanting to believe that it could be happening again, not wanting to believe she'd betray me a second time. Things didn't stay quiet for long. I wanted to believe that we had turned a corner after her first betrayal, that we were working to fix what had broken between us. But doubt has a way of creeping in, slowly but surely, like water seeping through a crack in the foundation. Every day, those cracks in our marriage seemed to grow a little wider. Jessie, to her credit, was trying, or at least, she seemed like she was trying. She'd send me texts throughout the day, like she used to, telling me she loved me, checking in. She would come home earlier some nights, making a point to spend more time with me, but it felt forced. Deep down, I knew something still wasn't right. It's hard to explain how I knew. Maybe it was in the way she moved around me, always just a little too careful, a little too perfect. Or maybe it was in the way she'd talk about her work. Her voice slightly too enthusiastic, like she was putting on a show. And then there were the late nights at the university. They started becoming more frequent again. At first, she explained it away. Deadlines are coming up. I have to review some more papers. Or the professor wanted to go over revisions with me. All reasonable, all things she'd said before. But now, those excuses felt recycled, like she was reading from a script. I didn't want to believe it, though. I didn't want to admit to myself that she might be doing it again. But the pit in my stomach kept growing, gnawing at me, reminding me that she had already lied once, that she had already cheated once. And if she could do it before, what was stopping her from doing it again? Then one day, everything changed. It was just a regular weekday, nothing special. I had stepped out of the office during lunch to grab a coffee, thinking I'd stop by the Starbucks near her university. I didn't even plan on being near her that day. It was just one of those random decisions you make without thinking. One of those things you later look back on and realize it was fate, or maybe just bad luck. Either way, that random decision changed everything. I walked into the Starbucks, scrolling through my phone as I waited in line. The place was busy, filled with students and professors on their breaks, all lost in their own little worlds. As I stood there, mindlessly refreshing my emails, I heard a voice that made my skin crawl. A voice I had only heard in passing, but one I'd never forget. I looked up, and there he was, Jessie's professor, the one I'd heard about in those rumors, the one she'd been involved with before. My heart started racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. I watched as he ordered 2 coffees to go, chatting easily with the barista, completely at ease. And then, like a punch to the gut, something inside me clicked. I just knew. I didn't have any proof, no concrete evidence, but something deep inside me, maybe instinct, maybe the gut feeling I'd been ignoring for weeks, told me that he wasn't alone. I knew those 2 coffees weren't both for him. Without even thinking, I made a decision. I was going to follow him. I needed to know. After he picked up his order, I trailed behind him, keeping my distance, my heart pounding in my chest. He walked out to the parking lot, heading towards his car like nothing was out of the ordinary. And then I saw her. There was Jessie, sitting in the passenger seat, smiling, laughing. They were talking casually, like they hadn't a care in the world, completely comfortable, completely at ease, as if everything was perfectly normal. My whole body went cold. I froze where I stood, my feet planted in the middle of the parking lot, my coffee forgotten in my hand. I couldn't move. I just stood there, watching as they drove off together, laughing at some joke I wasn't part of. The reality hit me like a truck. She wasn't working late. She wasn't with her research group. She was with him. Again, after everything, after all her promises and tears and pleas for forgiveness, she was right back in his car, doing it all over again. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, staring at the empty space where their car had been. My coffee had gone cold, my hand numb around the cup, but I didn't even notice. The world around me blurred. People walking by, cars pulling in and out of the lot. But I was stuck in that moment. The image of her in his passenger seat burned into my brain. That was the moment everything became real. The rumors, the doubts, the suspicions, they weren't just in my head. Jessie was cheating again, And there was no more pretending, no more lying to myself, no more excuses. I stood there, feeling the weight of it all settle in my chest, and I knew. My marriage was over, and the woman I had loved and trusted had betrayed me again. Only this time, I wasn't going to let her get away with it. After that day in the parking lot, something in me broke. Seeing Jessie with him, laughing, completely comfortable in her betrayal. It was like a switch flipped inside me. The doubts were gone, and all that was left was cold, hard reality. She had made her choice. But this time, I wasn't going to be her fool. I needed proof, something undeniable, something she couldn't weasel her way out of. That night, I sat across from her at dinner, listening to her talk about her day as if everything was fine. She looked at me with those same lying eyes, smiled like she always did, and I played along. But inside, I was already planning. I knew exactly what I was going to do. Over the next few days, I installed hidden cameras around the house, tiny, barely noticeable. One in the living room, another in the bedroom, and one by the front door. All the footage would be sent straight to my personal server. Jessie had no idea. She thought she had me fooled, but she didn't realize she was walking right into my trap. It didn't take long to catch them. A few days later, I sat at my computer and watched as they entered our home together. She led him inside, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And then, the part that truly shattered whatever was left of my heart, they went to our bedroom. Our bed. I watched as they fell onto the bed, her hands all over him, like she couldn't get enough. It made me sick, but it was what she said next that pushed me over the edge. As they lay there, tangled in each other, Jessie turned to him and laughed. Can you believe how boring Tom is? He's such a joke. He just lies there, like he's doing me a favor or something. No wonder I had to find someone else. Hearing her say that on our bed, about me, her husband, made something snap inside me. The cameras captured it all. The betrayal wasn't just physical. She was ripping me apart piece by piece, making a joke out of me to her lover, and it was all right there on video. At that moment I knew. Forgiveness wasn't an option. This wasn't just about catching her in the act anymore. No, this was about revenge. Cold, calculated revenge. After hearing her laugh at me, mock me in the very place where we were supposed to build our life together, I knew I couldn't just let it slide. Jessie didn't just cheat on me. She humiliated me. She took everything we shared, everything that was sacred between us, and turned it into some kind of sick joke. The bed where we made promises to each other, where we had moments of intimacy, was now the place where she belittled me, laughed at me to her lover. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved and trusted, had turned me into the punchline of her affair. But I wasn't going to confront her. No, that would be too easy. I knew Jessie. She'd cry, she'd beg, she'd make excuses. And honestly, at that point, I didn't want to hear a single word from her. She didn't deserve a chance to explain herself or ask for forgiveness. That moment when she mocked me, when she made me feel like less than nothing, had killed any part of me that might have been willing to forgive. I didn't just want an argument, some shouting match where she'd inevitably twist things back onto me. I wanted revenge, real, cold, calculated revenge. I spent the next few days obsessing over the footage, watching it over and over again. It was torture, but at the same time, it fueled the fire inside me. Each second I watched them together in my own home, I could feel my anger sharpening into something colder, more focused. I didn't just want to end things with her. I wanted to destroy her. I wanted her to feel the weight of every lie she told me, to feel the pain that had settled like a permanent lump in my chest. I wanted her life to collapse around her just as mine had when I realized she had betrayed me. The first step was simple. I had the videos, and I knew exactly how to use them. My IT background gave me the skills to handle the footage in ways most people wouldn't even think of. I edited the videos, making sure it was clear, crystal clear, what she was doing. Every touch, every kiss, every laugh at my expense, laid bare for the world to see. I wasn't just going to keep her dirty little secret hidden behind closed doors. I wanted it out there. I wanted everyone to see it, her friends, her colleagues, her family. Uploading it wasn't hard. There are dozens of popular adult websites that will host anything as long as it brings in clicks. I uploaded the video to several of them, knowing it would start spreading like wildfire. It wouldn't be long before people in her professional circle would come across it, and I knew her reputation would be destroyed. Jessie had always cared about appearances, about being the successful academic on her way to a PhD. She was meticulous about how people saw her, making sure she was always put together, always the brilliant scholar. That was about to change, but ruining her reputation wasn't enough for me. No, I needed to hit her where it hurt the most, her career. Jessie had built her entire identity around her academic success. That PhD she was working on, it was everything to her. She poured years into it, sacrificed time, relationships, even our marriage, so she claimed, for the sake of her research. I knew, in that cold part of me that was now calling the shots, that the only way to truly destroy her was to take away what she valued most, her future. While she was out, probably pretending everything was fine at the university, I hacked into her files. All those nights I spent helping her with tech issues, setting up her systems, making sure everything was synced and backed up, I used all of that knowledge against her. I accessed her dissertation files, the documents she had spent years researching and writing. I didn't hesitate. With a few keystrokes, I deleted it all. Every single draft, every note, every piece of research. Gone. Erased in an instant. It was almost too easy. I left nothing behind but empty folders. No backups. No traces of the work she had spent so many years on. Without that dissertation, Jessie was nothing in her academic world. No PhD. No career. Nothing to show for all those sleepless nights she claimed were for our future. When I was done, I sat there for a while, staring at the blank screen, feeling the cold satisfaction slowly wash over me. This was just the beginning. Jessie had destroyed everything we had, and now I was destroying everything she had built for herself. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad or hurt. I was numb, but that numbness was exactly what I needed to carry this through to the end. She had no idea what was coming. With the videos uploaded and her dissertation erased, all that was left to do was wait. It was strange. After everything I had done, part of me expected to feel anxious or second-guess myself, but instead, there was this eerie calmness, like a storm settling before the real chaos hit. My nerves were steady because I knew, deep down, this was her reckoning. She lied to my face, humiliated me, and now it was her turn to face the music. I had played the loyal, forgiving husband once before, and it got me nowhere but humiliated. Now I was in control. Now I was the one holding the cards, and she didn't even know she was part of the game. It didn't take long for things to start unraveling. The first sign came that evening. Jessie walked through the front door, the same way she always did, smiling, her eyes bright, like nothing was wrong. She didn't know what had already started to spread. She didn't know that her world was about to collapse. She asked me about my day, talking about some mundane thing that happened at work, as if she wasn't the center of a scandal that was about to explode. She even kissed me on the cheek, the same fake tenderness she'd been giving me for months, and I played along, smiling back, pretending everything was fine. I asked her about her day, just to see what lies she would tell this time. She answered, oblivious to what was brewing just beyond her awareness. The calm before the storm. As she talked, I could almost feel the seconds ticking down in my head, like I was counting down to impact. I wasn't just waiting for it. I was anticipating it. The crash was coming, and there was no stopping it now. And then, the next day, it happened. I was at work when my phone buzzed, and I glanced at the screen. It was a text from a mutual friend, someone we both knew well enough to trust. The message came in casually, but the weight of it hit hard. Dude, have you seen what's going around? There's a video of Jessie. I don't know how to say this, man, but you need to check it out. I played dumb, texting back, "What video?" pretending I had no idea. But of course I knew. I had orchestrated the entire thing. The video had gone viral, just as I knew it would. People from her university were starting to talk. It wasn't just some rumor that would be swept under the rug. This was her career, her reputation. Everything she had worked for, all tied up in that one humiliating act of betrayal. And now, it was out there for everyone to see. By the time I got home that evening, the storm was in full swing. Jessie came in late, her usual confidence nowhere to be seen. She looked rattled. Her hands trembled as she dropped her bag on the kitchen counter, her face pale. And for a split second, I almost felt something. Maybe pity, maybe regret, but it was gone just as quickly. She deserved this. She stood there, frozen for a moment, staring down at the floor like she was too afraid to look at me. When she finally spoke, her voice was shaky, barely holding together. "Tom, something happened today," she whispered. I just stared at her, cold and detached, waiting for her to continue, waiting for her to face what was coming. Her eyes, those same eyes that used to be filled with love, now filled with fear, finally met mine. Someone posted a video of me with him. Her voice cracked, and she tried to keep it together, but I could see her crumbling. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing, her whole body shaking as she buried her face in her hands. For months, I had imagined this moment, her finally breaking down, finally facing the reality of what she had done. And now here it was, laid out in front of me, raw and messy. But all I felt was cold satisfaction. Now she wanted to cry. Now she felt the shame, the guilt. After months of sneaking around, a line to my face, laughing at me behind my back, now she felt remorse? Too late. I stood there, watching her, but I didn't move. I didn't comfort her. I didn't say a word. She didn't deserve my comfort, my words. Not anymore. This was a bed she had made, and now she could lie in it alone. I walked past her, not even glancing back, as I made my way to the bedroom. The sound of her sobs echoed through the house, but I didn't care. She wasn't worth my sympathy anymore. As I lay in bed that night, I could hear her crying in the living room, her soft, broken sobs filling the silence. And for the first time in months, I slept soundly. The next morning, Jessie was a shadow of herself. She didn't meet my eyes as we moved around the kitchen in silence. There was no more pretending, no more small talk. She was already broken, but I knew this was just the beginning. I could see it in her posture, in the way she moved. She knew what was coming next, but she wasn't ready for it. And that made it all the more satisfying. The morning after Jessie found out about the video, the house was eerily quiet. She didn't say anything to me before I left for work, and honestly, I didn't care. Her silence was just another sign that my plan was working. It was only a matter of time before everything else started falling apart. When I got home that evening, Jessie was sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes red and swollen from crying. The once confident, ambitious woman I married was now a shell of herself, shaken to her core. And the sight of her like that, it didn't fill me with pity. It filled me with satisfaction. She looked up at me, her voice trembling. "Tom, do you know who did this?" Her hands clutched her phone, like she was holding on for dear life. Someone sent the video to my colleagues. My advisors saw it. They're talking about kicking me out of the program. I could feel her eyes on me, searching for some kind of comfort, some reassurance. But she wouldn't find any here. I just shrugged. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you brought him into our bed." Her face twisted in disbelief. And for a moment, I thought she was going to explode. But she didn't. She just stared at me, like she couldn't believe what was happening. "You did this," she whispered, her voice cracking. It wasn't a question. It was a realization. I didn't deny it. I didn't need to. "You brought this on yourself, Jessie. You think you can walk all over me, humiliate me, and I just take it? You made your bed. Now you get to lie in it." Her tears started again, but this time, I didn't feel anything. She wasn't my wife anymore. She was the woman who destroyed everything we built. And now, she was reaping what she sowed. But I wasn't done yet. After that night, things spiraled fast. Jessie was a mess, and I didn't care. The video spread like wildfire, not just at her university, but beyond. I had made sure of that. Friends, colleagues, even some family members started to distance themselves from her. The whispers, the judgment, it all came crashing down, and she was drowning in it. A few days later, I came home to find Jessie sitting on the floor of our bedroom, staring at her laptop. Her dissertation was gone, and she knew it. The years of work she had poured into that PhD, the long nights, the research, it was all erased in seconds, thanks to me. She kept clicking through empty folders, trying to make sense of it, as if by some miracle it would reappear. She didn't even look up when I walked in. "It's all gone," she muttered, her voice hollow. My dissertation, everything, gone. Her fingers trembled as they hovered over the keys. She sounded like she was on the verge of losing it completely. Good. I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching her break down. Must suck, huh? Losing everything like that? All your hard work, your future, poof. Gone, just like that. Jessie finally turned to look at me, her face streaked with tears, eyes wide in disbelief. You did this," she croaked. I didn't even flinch. "Yeah, I did. And you know why? Because you deserve it, Jessie. You didn't just betray me. You made a fool out of me. In my own house. In our bed. You slut-shamed me to your little professor boyfriend. Like I was nothing. My voice was cold, emotionless. So, yeah, I ruined your life. The same way you ruined mine." She tried to speak, but no words came out. Just more tears, more sobs. But this time, I didn't feel satisfaction. Just emptiness. I had stripped her of everything. Her reputation, her career, and now, her dignity. There was nothing left of the woman she once was. And for a moment, I wondered if I had gone too far. But then I remembered the pain she put me through, the way she laughed about me with him. And I knew she had it coming. Jessie's life unraveled faster than I expected. She stopped going to the university entirely. Couldn't face her colleagues, her professors, or the gossip. Word had gotten out that she was the woman from that video, and no one was going to forget it. She'd walk into a room, and conversations would drop dead. Whispers would follow her. People couldn't look her in the eye, and when they did, it was only to judge. She tried to fight it at first, sending frantic emails to her advisors, trying to salvage what was left of her dissertation, her career, her future. But it was no use. The university launched an investigation, and soon enough the news came. She was expelled. There'd be no PhD for Jessie. Years of work down the drain, all because of a few moments of selfish pleasure. She had no one to blame but herself. I didn't say much as she tried to piece together her shattered life. I just watched her scramble, sinking deeper into the hole she dug for herself. She was losing everything, and I wasn't done yet. One afternoon, Jessie sat on the couch, staring blankly at her phone. "They fired him," she mumbled, almost to herself. "The professor, they fired him. He left town." I couldn't help the smirk that crept onto my face. Of course he left. The moment things got messy, he was gone. No loyalty, no sticking around to help her pick up the pieces. The man she risked everything for had bailed on her, just like I knew he would. She turned to me, her voice barely a whisper. "What am I supposed to do now, Tom? I've lost everything." I looked her dead in the eye, my voice cold and flat. "You should have thought about that before you cheated. Before you laughed at me. Now, you're dealing with the consequences. Just like I did." She sat there, broken, lost in a mess of her own making. And for the first time, I saw the weight of her choices sinking in. She was truly alone now. No career, no lover, nothing, and I wasn't done. The satisfaction of watching Jessie's life crumble around her was short-lived. It wasn't enough. I thought the public humiliation, the loss of her career, and the professor ditching her would be the final nail in the coffin. But I wanted more. I wanted her to feel the full weight of what she'd done, to know she had no way out of the mess she created. The divorce papers were next. One night, after she spent hours crying in the bedroom, I calmly handed them to her at the kitchen table. Her eyes went wide as she flipped through the pages, the reality of it hitting her all at once. "Tom, please," she stammered, her voice shaky. "We can fix this. We can work through it. I can change. I know I messed up, but please, don't do this. We've been together for so long." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, watching her unravel all over again. "There's no we anymore, Jesse. You killed at the moment you brought him into our bed. You destroyed our marriage. This is the only way forward." She started sobbing, begging, but her words didn't mean anything anymore. It was too late, way too late. I didn't even feel angry anymore, just cold, numb. "This is your life now, Jesse," I said, my voice steady. "You chose him. You chose to ruin us. Now you can live with the consequences." She signed the papers with trembling hands, the reality sinking in that everything she once had was slipping away for good. Her career, her reputation, and now her marriage, all gone. As I walked out of the room, leaving her alone with her guilt, I felt a strange sense of closure. It wasn't the fiery satisfaction I thought I'd feel. It was quieter, like I had finally taken back the control she stole from me. The next day, I filed the papers. Our marriage was officially over, just like that. After the divorce, Jesse's life hit rock bottom. With no job, no career prospects, and a ruined reputation, she became a ghost of the woman she once was. People who once admired her kept their distance, not wanting to be associated with someone so publicly shamed. It wasn't just her academic world that turned its back on her, her friends, family, everyone. She was alone. She tried to find work, but no one would hire her. Even jobs she was overqualified for wouldn't touch her once they found out about the scandal. The videos were out there, and no matter how hard she tried to scrub them from the internet, they wouldn't disappear. I made sure of that. Her name was forever tied to that affair, and in this digital age, there was no escaping it. I heard from a mutual friend that she'd been forced to move back in with her parents, tail between her legs, barely able to leave the house without feeling the weight of the judgment from everyone around her. The professor? He was long gone, fled the state, leaving Jessie to deal with the fallout on her own. No more romantic getaways. No more secret meetings. She was completely abandoned. She stopped calling me after a while. At first, there were the desperate texts and phone calls, her begging to talk, asking if we could work things out, if I could ever forgive her. But I ignored every single one. Eventually, they stopped. She must have realized there was no coming back from what she did. It was over. For good.